Hey everybody, If here. Today I'm going to be talking a bit about the belt system. I'm going to go ahead and describe what it is, what we use it for, and then I'll be going into each one of the belts and giving some examples of the common locks that we see used for those various belts and what you can expect as you go through each of the belts in the system. Basically, the belt system is a roadmap. It gives you a place to start if you're new to the sport, to the hobby, and gives you a good direction on where to go. So if you're very new, you need to start with easier locks. So you start at the beginning with what is commonly suggested, and you learn how to pick that lock. And then after you get good at that type of lock, you're ready to move up to the next level. Well, it's hard to tell what the next best step is, and that's what the belt system does. You look at the next belt class and see some of the locks there. And if you find some that you'd like to learn to pick, that's what you start shooting for. And you learn skills in one belt that you need to apply to learn the skills to obtain the next belt. It's not just how to pick locks, it's the methodology, different skills you need, whether it's tensioning or tools. And as you progress, you'll find that some tools that you need to pick the lock you're working on may not exist or aren't readily available. You might have to make your own tool or invent your own tool. So that's what the belt system is. It's how you get through various classes of lock difficulty with guidance of others and the belt system. It's a way of engaging the community and getting people to help each other learn, grow, and share that knowledge. The first belt in the belt system is the white belt. This is where you first are introduced to picking locks. This can be any kind of lock. It can be an acrylic practice lock, a basic 3-pin lock of random origin. It really doesn't matter. To get this belt, you just need to pick any lock with any tool and show a picture of that lock opened. This is where you start to learn how to find the binding pins, how you learn to listen and feel to see if the pin is set, and this is where you start to learn the techniques you'll be needing to apply to pick the locks to obtain your next belt level, the yellow belt. You learn tensioning, feeling, like I said, feeling for binders, checking to see if pins are set, adjusting tension, and the type of tension, whether it's top of the keyway tension or bottom of the keyway tension. Some of the common locks we see are, like I said before, the acrylic locks, the see-through ones, so you can see the pins moving and how you're manipulating the pins with your picks. The master locks, master number 1 through 8, all qualify. Anything that doesn't have security pins, they typically don't have a removable core. One of the most common ones we see is the master number 3. This is the commercial one, but it's just like any other. It's a basic 4-pin lock, no security pins. Lots of room in the keyway, and these are commonly picked from the top or bottom of the keyway. Well, using top or bottom of the keyway for tension. These are, like I said, one of the most common ones, and they're a really great place to start. You can really feel the pins binding in most cases, and so these are really good for learning the basics. The second belt in the belt system is the yellow belt. At this point, you have the basic understanding of what's required to pick a lock. You know how to find the binder, you know how to apply tension, and you have been able to get into a few locks. Now it's time to step up your game a little bit. At the yellow belt level, you'll still be using locks that have a fairly open keyway where you can use top or bottom tension. But now your locks will have some security pins, whether that's serrated or spooled, and you're going to have to learn how to pick this new style pin. Some examples of the commonly used locks for yellow belt are the Abus 64 Ti Titanium. They have a non-removable core and 4 pins or less, and you will find security pins in those. The 40 millimeter non-removable core Ace laminated padlocks. The Brinks brass padlock with non-removable core. and any of the Master 140, 141, or Magnum series locks. This is a Master 140. You can see it still has a fairly open keyway. And again, only 4 pins, but I said before, you will encounter at least 1 security pin, if not 2, while you're picking this lock. To obtain your yellow belt, you do only need to supply a picture. You do not need to make a video of you picking the lock. Just the lock picked open and the keyway turned without the key. And that will get you your yellow belt. The third belt in the belt system is the orange belt. The yellow belt gave you an introduction to security pins, and now you should have a basic understanding or a decent understanding of the concept of what they're doing and how they're working against you as you try and defeat the lock. Locks from this point on are going to have more security measures than locks that you've been accustomed to so far. That might include more security pins, better machined, more precise security pins, so they really hang up more in the plug or Bible, and sometimes more aggressive keyways. They're not quite as open. It's harder to get good tension. To get the orange belt, you do need to pick this on camera. Your video must be taken in one continuous take. You don't need to gut the lock for this belt, but that will be something you need to do at the next level. So if you have a non-removable core lock for this one, that's fine. Some of the more common locks we see here are the ABUS line locks, the 4140, the 64 Ti titanium again, but with 5 pins or more instead of 4 pins or less. The ABUS 8340, the ACE 40mm brass padlock that has a non-removable core, and the ACE laminated 44mm padlock, also with a non-removable core. Here are a couple of the ABUS locks that are also the orange belt level. There's the 6540. You can see here the keyway is still open, but it's going to be harder to get bottom of the keyway tension possibly. And you're going to have more precise tolerances in the manufacturing that makes it a little bit more difficult as well. Here's the 5540 brass ABUS padlock. Different keyway. Again, this one has 4 pins, but security pins are in there. So here you'll be developing your skills with security pins and more secure, more tightly machined locks. You will definitely need to really start to learn how to feel and listen to the lock to see how those security pins are interacting with the lock itself and what you're trying to accomplish. The fourth belt in the belt system is the green belt. These are much higher quality locks than you've been picking up until now and have more security pins and other things that can make picking more difficult. Possibly dead cores, dimples instead of your traditional pin tumbler locks. Your skills have grown and now locks are getting harder. At this level, you must now also be able to completely gut a lock after you pick it, showing that you can disassemble and then hopefully reassemble. Your video for the green belt does have to be shot in one continuous take from the time you start picking the lock to the time you get it open and get it completely taken apart. An example of some of the things that may be in your new lock you haven't seen before are an introduction to side pins. You can see here this is a Schlage Everest. This is one of the green belt locks. You can see the keyway is much more restrictive than what you're used to up until now. And on the side of this key you'll also see this groove here. And that is for a finger pin, a tiny pin on the side that after you pick the top pins, you also have to lift that one down there to actually get the lock open. So these locks are getting more difficult. Other locks for the green belt level are the ABUS 7240, the ABUS 7550, the 75IB50, the ABUS Brady lockout, Lodo, lockout tagout, the Abus Titanium 80 Ti, which has a non-removable core, just like the Brady Lotos do, the Master 410 Loto, the Master Lock 911 and 931, and several others. The fifth belt in the belt system is the Blue Belt. This is your first real big step up and your basic introduction to high security locks. These locks are going to employ different methods to secure the locks and different ways to make them much harder to open. Restrictive keyways, sidebars instead of your traditional pin tumbler locks. To get your Blue Belt, you'll not only need to demonstrate the ability to pick locks at the Blue Belt level, but you'll also show that you're able and willing to help new pickers learn and grow and possibly give them help with their locks. That outreach to the community and that assistance can be done via the subreddit or in Discord chat. At this level, you'll also need to build your first challenge lock and send it out for someone else to pick. This is where learning to gut the locks and reassemble the locks from the previous belts really come in. And this is where you demonstrate that you did in fact learn that and can now apply it. Some of the locks that are included in the Blue Belt system are the Abus D10, the Abus EC, a Medico cam lock with 4 pins or less, some of the Lockwood locks with spool drivers like the Lockwood 334 B45, and one of the more common ones is the Kwikset Smart Key, and this Gen 1 or Gen 2 will qualify for a Blue Belt pick. It does look like an easier yellow belt, white belt, possibly Kwikset lock, but instead of traditional drivers up there, this is in fact a sidebar. So when you try and pick this lock, you're having to lift the pins, the sidebar up to a very specific level to allow the sidebar to retract into the plug and then rotate. And you'll find that many locks moving forward from here will also have similar security features in addition to pin tumblers, making them even more difficult. The sixth belt in the belt system is the Purple Belt. You are now really working on picking high security locks. This means that they have at least 2 locking mechanisms that you have to defeat before you can get the lock open. These types of locks are typically considered unpickable by most locksmiths. To obtain your Purple Belt, you should be regularly helping other pickers getting through their locks and helping them advance, and sharing challenge locks that you've been building. Whereas before you needed to only pick 1 lock from the list, at this point you will have to pick 2 locks on the list of Purple Belt class locks. Some of those locks include the Abus XP2S, the Abus XP20S, the CISA AP3, the Chicago Duo, the Ava DPS, DPX, or EPS, Medico Original, Biaxial, M3, not MP3, M3, the Multi-Lock Interactive Classic or Junior with spool driver pins, the Multi-Lock MT5 without the sidebar, or the Malenko Magnum, and there are others out there as well. An example of the Purple Belt lock is the Medico Biaxial. This one happens to be in a S&G 833. And you can see that it has 6 pins that you have to lift to the proper height, but it's biaxial, meaning the pins have to also be turned to the proper angle. You can see all these cuts here. They have to be rotated and lifted. So you rotate them to the proper place to allow the sidebar to retract. You have to lift the driver pins to the right level to allow it to turn in the plug as well. So that would be your 2 mechanisms to make this a high security lock. The 7th belt on the list is the Brown Belt. At the Brown Belt level, you are entering the realm of ultra high security locks. These locks are so difficult to pick that at times you're going to need specialized tools that aren't even made. You can't just go buy one. So you're going to have to make one to get into these locks. keyways are much tighter and extremely paracentric, and are going to have new things that you probably haven't seen yet in the locks you've picked so far. Things like rotating sidebar fingers, telescoping key pins, and counter milling is going to be very common. That's going to allow serrations and spools to really get hung up in the plug as you're picking, giving you a false set, but not opening the lock. At the brown belt level, you'll have to select 2 locks to single pin pick, and of course pick them on video in one continuous take and gut them as well in that take. You'll also have to have made at least one specialized tool. The Schlage Primus or Everest Primus is an example of one of these locks. As you can see, hopefully, the keyway is not an easy keyway to get into. You have 6 pins, some of which will be security pins, but you also have 5 sidebar finger pins that you'll have to lift to the proper level and pick into the proper gate. 5 of them before you can get into this lock. And so to get to them, you're going to have to make a tool to get down in here and lift each one of those front to back to get this lock open. This is what makes these locks so difficult. It's just not a straightforward pick any longer. The 8th belt in the belt system is the red belt. You are now all in on the ultra-high security locks. You're regularly making custom tools to pick your locks, and you are helping the folks at blue, purple, and brown levels to advance and pick their locks. After all, you've gone where they have not yet been, and they need your help. One of the requirements for the red belt is mentoring those people at those advanced levels to help them get into their higher level locks. You do have to single pin pick and gut 2 locks at this level in one continuous take. And some of those locks include the Abus 8950, the Bilock, the Multilock MT5 Plus, the 4-pin version, the Zycon Verso, and the M-Heart or M-Heart interchangeable core. The M-Heart here doesn't have a horribly restrictive keyway, but it's quite restrictive enough to make it very difficult to rotate all 6 of the pins before you lift them. Similar to the Medico, these have cuts of different angles, and all 6 of those pins need to be rotated to the proper position and lifted to the proper height.
Hey everyone, Diggs here, and I'll be filling in for the last portion of this video as we had some technical difficulties we just couldn't resolve with our footage. So the last belt in our system is the black belt, and in order to achieve a black belt, you must complete all of the side achievements required beforehand at the various belt levels, and then in addition to that, you must pick and gut on film in one continuous take at least 2 black belt locks. In addition to that, you must also demonstrate that you've been mentoring people at a much higher level, notably red and brown belt lock pickers. And you must demonstrate that you have completed 2 epic quests. Quests can take 2 different forms. One would be the demonstration of an extra skill, and the other would be the completion of a master's project. Some examples of extra skills that have been used in the past would be Group 2 safe manipulation, key impressioning, advanced and refined pick making, machining cutaway locks, and an exceptional knowledge of locks and keyways. Some examples of master's projects that have been completed are making a lock from scratch, a website that enables the registration and tracking of challenge locks for the community, and the formation and leadership of a tool chapter or other community organization. You are allowed to sub out either or both of those things for an additional 2 black belt locks. So if you sub out 1 epic quest, you'll have to pick an additional 2 black belt locks, and if you sub out both epic quests, then you'll have to pick a total of 6 black belt locks, all on film, all pick and gut in one continuous take. Here I've got some black belt locks so I can demonstrate just what kind of difficulty we're talking about here. And I'm going to just show you the keys. So to start, we've got an Abloy Protect 2. You look at the cuts on this key, it will make your head spin trying to figure out what's going on inside of here. And as far as I know, only one person in the world has picked one of these publicly, and that's one of our own, Hux. Here we've got a 14 lever lock made by Chubb called the Mercy, or Mercy, depending on how you like to pronounce it. It's a very cool lock. This key is kind of a lie because there's some ingenious stuff going on inside of it. Here we've got a much newer lock, the Boley padlock, or the 543 if you want to get technical. And it's almost a doubling of the difficulty that existed in the original Boley, which in itself is a bear. Look at this key. It looks like it would be fragile. Several people have said that in their videos on it too. I promise you, it's a very strong key. It's a very cool lock, and we're still waiting for somebody to beat this one. Here I've got a Miwa PR. We're going to be seeing more about this lock real soon, and I'm excited about that because I haven't tried to pick it yet. And it's a real cool lock, I think. Here I've got an Abloy disc lock, which is a much older version of the Protect 2. Well, it's not a version of the Protect 2. It's a much older Abloy disc detainer lock. Here I've got an MT5 Plus from Multilock. I love the keys on these. Very cool. Over here I've got a Banham M2002. The key did not want to come free there. Pretty interesting double-sided reversible paddle type key with dimple cutouts. You would think this is a dimple lock, but it's not so much. And you should be seeing more about that soon too. Here we've got what look like twins, except for one's clear. They're slightly different, but they're in the same family. They're both Western Electric locks. This is a 30C and this is a 29B. Here we've got a Fichet F3D, and if you've never seen a key for one of these, look at that. Pretty awesome. As far as I know, Correct Jeans is the only person to have picked one of these, so hopefully we can increase that number here soon. I've got a couple of asses here, but I don't have the keys for these, and I don't want to make this a real long video. I just wanted to show you some of the craziness that exists. And I do have some other keys here, just real quickly. Here's an MCS key. It's got magnets on it, because the whole lock is magnetic rotors. Twin Pro, you've seen that recently. Ava Dual, this is one of my personal favorite keys in existence. It's just so cool to me. What else we got here that's not already on the table? And then here's an ICS key, which is pretty similar to your Dual, but it looks wildly different, but the lock's mechanism is pretty similar, I'd say. So anyway, those are some of the locks that you'll come up against trying to attain your black belt, and I hope you're ready. I hope you're dedicated, and I hope you have some dollars, because it gets real expensive at this level. And so one piece of advice I can give you is buy one or two at a time and really go at them hard, get them done, get them picked and gutted on film, and then either trade them to somebody else who has something you want or resell them and move on. Try not to amass a ton of black belt locks before you're ready for them. Then you might be stuck and you might need some brown or red belt locks that you won't be able to afford. Black belt pickers are extremely rare, and while the belt system was developed for fun and with a degree of levity, becoming a black belt truly is an honor and something to be proud of. It's difficult for a reason. So I hope you share with us along the way and you take this journey, have fun with it, use it as a guide, and achieve great things with lockpicking. You can find the belt listings and each of the requirements by belt on the r/lockpicking subreddit. You'll also find some very helpful people, both there and in the Discord. Please join us again tomorrow for Teardown Tuesday with Correct Jeans as he demystifies an awesome Miwa lock.